And Chris, I've got a question for you. I want to know a bit about your background. I read some of the things in when I Googled your site. You have a degree, an arts degree?
It's a Bachelor of Arts degree, but my major was government. So
Oh,
I am not artistic at all, Wally. So that would be
I was
would be
curious.
lying to the people.
Well, can you talk a bit about your growing up and your connection with hockey and how you got into coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So grew up in Buffalo, New York, and have an older brother who was into hockey first. So that kind of got me involved in it. Parents were Sabres season ticket holders, so we used to go to games as kids. So it was really part of our upbringing, and played. It's a different time, but like played Tier 1, a team in Buffalo, the Wheatfield Blades, and my dad actually became the president of the organization. So again, it became more ingrained in our family background, and did that for through Bantam Major. Then played some junior hockey with a team called the Niagara Scenic, now the Buffalo Junior Sabres. Did that for my junior, senior year of high school. I was fortunate to play with some really, really talented players who moved on and played at the highest levels. From there, went and played Division III college at Hamilton. Spent 4 years there at Hamilton College and had just an incredible experience. Had a great coach who really impacted me, influenced me as a person more than anything. And I think that, I graduated young at 21. So, I knew I wanted to stay in coaching, also thought I wanted to teach a bit. So I took a job at a boarding school out in Indiana, Culver Academy. And I spent a year out there teaching and coaching on one of their programs. Wanted to be back out east. Enjoyed Culver, but it's in the middle of Indiana. Didn't have a lot of connection out there. A lot of my friends were back Boston, New York. So to Pete's point, I was fortunate to get a job at the Gunnery and stayed in coaching there, coached the JV team there for a year, then became the varsity assistant coach, which is when Pete's son Matt was part of the team. And then just timing, right? Life's timing. And our boys coach stepped down. So I had the opportunity to slide in, which I did. Added Pete to the staff, a guy, Craig Badger, to the staff. And we worked together for 12 or 13 years and built the program from pretty downtrodden time to a consistent championship contender. So I did that and was there for 15 years, Wally, and then wanted to move back closer to home. My wife and I are from this area. So I took a job and I was the first director at Selects Academy at Bishop Kearney, which is the girls program out here. Did that for about 2 years. And then the job opened up at Nazareth. And so put in for that. Didn't necessarily think I'd get it, but I did. And was the first coach at Nazareth and have built the program along with obviously the other staff and players from the ground up 7 years ago. And then that's where we are now.
Well, I'm going to get Tom Malloy to introduce himself because Tom and I work with girls hockey in Calgary. It's an association, and we have a lot of players in Div 3.
Okay.
And it's very popular. It's a big choice. It seems the ideal when they play U18 AAA midget here. We have 2 teams. And it's really a struggle to keep them in our association because prep schools are attracting them away. And we sort of compete with prep schools in Canada. So most of our players are going to prep schools so they can go to NCAA Division I. So Tom, I'd like to, you can see Tom and I and Peter, we've got gray hair or no hair. And we've been around the game a lot, but Tom has the most extensive background of any of us. He's coached every age level, male and female, nationally. He's worked worldwide with coaches in Finland and Russia. And now he's working with U13 girls in an
15,
association
15.
where he's worked with coached AAA teams here. And I've acted as a mentor in the association. So, Tom, would you introduce yourself, please? And Dominic should be joining us after his kids get out of the gym. So,
Yeah, I grew up in Calgary and ended up playing junior A, and then I heard about Bemidji. I'd never heard about it. This guy came back at Christmas because I was talking to coach in Maine, and so I contacted the coach. This is a long time ago, so by mail, and I said I was interested in there, and I had didn't lead the league or anything, but pretty good stats in junior A. And he said, "Well, it sounds like you can probably play here, but I've never seen you. I'll give you a good try. Good look if you come." So I went there and I played at Bemidji, and then I played in that old U.S. Hockey League. It was kind of a semi-pro kind of a league for just 1 year after. I didn't mean to, but my friend played at Denver. He was a backup goalie, and the assistant coach at Denver was going to be the head coach of this new team in Sioux City, Iowa. So he says, "Well, I'm going to Sioux City to play goal for him. I don't want to go by myself, so I got you a tryout." So I didn't have any plans, so I went and I made the team. And anyways, then I came back and a year at University of Calgary, got my teaching degree and taught. And then in the 80s, like I was coaching some minor hockey, and I got a call in the 80s by SAIT. And the coach had quit, longtime coach had quit, and his assistant was taking over. He's a goalie, and he had no idea how to run practice. So they asked me if I'd go there to run practice. So I did that a year as assistant, then head for 4. And then then in the 90s, I was assistant coach at University of Calgary. Willie Desjardins and Mike Johnson were there, and Tim Bothwell. And then in 2000, I took early retirement in 2003, and they were looking for head coach of the Mount Royal women's team, college. So I coached that for 5 years. Then out of the blue, I got a call from Salzburg, Austria. They'd identified me as a top skills coach, and they offered me a job. So I went there for a year. I made kind of a deal with my wife a year. She didn't want to go, and my kids were still at home. And then I came back. I coached that professional women's league, Western Women's Hockey League, for a couple of years. Then I started coaching AAA for this girls' hockey Wally's talking about, 3 years. And then, I've just been around it ever since. So right now, I'm coaching U15 AA, which is, I don't know why it's called AA. It's the top league in the province. There's 14 teams around the province. So my son and I are coaching that league, and Cassie Campbell helps us. And, so I've been around quite a bit. And I worked in Finland with a guy named Juhani Walston. He's kind of like the Gordie Howe of Finland. And I traveled around with him, and he got me kind of knowing all kinds of people in Europe. And I've done camps in Norway and Czech and all kinds of places like that. So, and then I've been brought down to the States, to about 10 different states by different people to do stuff. And so bounced all over the place, coached a lot, seen a lot, tried to learn a lot. Wally's been my mentor for last 10 years. Kind of, we did a bantam team together, boys. And, and just keep on swimming. So that's about me. Can't hear you, Wally.
Chris, did you get the email I sent explaining the name, the Sharks?
I don't think I did. No.
Okay, well, I'll give you a little bit of background. I don't know if Dominic's on. Dom, are you on?
Sitting right there.
I am. Yeah, I am, Wally.
I was there. I can't see him. But the Sharks, we used to meet for coffee in Calgary before COVID. 3 people, went up to 6, went up to 10. COVID hit. Every week we meet Thursday morning, 8:30 in Calgary. We talk hockey. And after COVID, we went online. And so we're still online. And Tim Bothwell, who originated the name the No Dead Sharks. And it comes from a Woody Allen movie. And Woody was asked by his girlfriend in the movie, what do you think our relationship? And she said, well, it's sort of like a shark. It's not swimming, it's not breathing, it's dying. So Tim bought nice little coffee tin cups with sharks engraved on them. And our mantra is lifelong learning, keep on swimming. And so that's sort of where we all come from. And I know Dominic from having coached him at professional camps years ago in Calgary, and I've known him literally all of our lives. And the reason I wanted to get you on is Peter made the connection knowing you and Dom, and then Dom spoke very highly of you. And when his daughter chooses a school, obviously a hockey knowledgeable parent's going to have to approve that decision. And he's really happy with the choice. So I've got a few questions. I'm gonna Dom, if you're on, I'm gonna ask you to talk about what caused you to make get you, agree with your daughter to make that decision to play for Chris.
Well, I think if any of us have daughters, first and foremost, it's presumptuous to say that I had any say in whatsoever in her making the decision. Obviously, when she asked for my input, I gave it. But obviously it's a big decision, and she had to be comfortable with what she was getting into and what she, wanted to commit to. And, so I think, first and foremost, it was because she had spoken with quite a few different coaches and looked at some different programs. And, she was the one that had in her gut feeling was that this was a good situation for her, just after having a conversation with Chris and the questions that he asked. Just how thoughtful, the comment was made, how thoughtful the questions were. And again, she's a really good student. She gets that from her mom, not from me. But it didn't come by it lightly. And so I think the fact that it wasn't, because she had some injuries leading up into her junior year, and no one had really asked her about it whatsoever. And I think Chris had asked, well, how did that make you feel, or something along those lines. And I apologize, Chris, if it was a little more in depth than that. But it kind of took her back, because it was questions about they were real. It was things that something she had to battle through, then she had to go through. And so again, those, and obviously there was more than that. And she had gone out there with my wife to visit the campus. And so it was difficult to get to, they got snowed out. The plane almost landed and then picked up again and went back to the original desk. It was crazy. But yeah, no, it was obviously, and then, obviously I do my due diligence as well. And having Chris and I having, mutual acquaintances and with Steve Bartlett, my agent, and, Steve spoke very, very highly of Chris and what he's done and program that he's built. And so it was a combination of things, but it was definitely her decision. I didn't even go with her on any of the trips that she went on and schools that she saw, but she obviously had to feel comfortable, and she did. And with the way the season, and again, I talk to her more now than I did when she was here, to be honest with you. Like, she's constantly checking in, and and I give my input on what I see, and the great part about it, I can be a dad. I don't have to be a coach. I can be a dad. And so that's been pretty special too. So,
Chris, I'm really curious. Did you recruit her? Did they reach out to you? And after that, I want to find out about what you look for when you recruit players.
Yeah. So, well, Dom, great to see you. Thanks for the kind words. With Sophia in particular, I think a lot of, so we had seen her, post injury, and really liked her, and had reached out, heard a little bit back, but knowing Sophia, right, with her injury history and knowing kids, and I don't want to, speak for Sophia, but I think that's really challenging, right? You get injured at a time when recruiting is almost at its peak, and then you come back and you really want to give yourself the opportunity to see like how far you could go in a kid's mind, right? And so, we kind of stayed on it. We had a little bit of interaction back and forth. Interestingly, Dom's, I don't know this connection, Dom, completely, but our volleyball coach knows somebody that knows Dom and his family. Yeah. And so no joke that like we're in, I don't know, January-ish, maybe, I think it was. And we really hadn't been connected with Sophia in a little bit. But our volleyball coach comes up and says, "Hey, I know this family. This kid's a good player." And I'm like, "Yeah, we do too. We really like her." And so that really prompted us to reach back out, and we were able to connect with Sophia, I think, in more depth. And to Dom's point, a lot of our recruiting it's very authentically rooted in getting to know the kids. And so I do remember the conversation where we're on the phone and she was telling me about her injury history, and just genuinely speaking, like I'm just curious, like, how you doing? Like, how did that affect you? How's your confidence? How are you feeling about the recruiting process? And if that lent itself to Sophia feeling a connection, that's awesome. And that's the way we do it, is we don't have canned questions. We really want to get to know the kid. And then to Dom's point, we were able to get her visit. I think she had to cancel once, I feel like, because of snow. They were in Philly. They were going to come down, but had to cancel. And I think Sophie's going to come on her own, actually, with that. And maybe your wife is going to meet her. And then, the second time they came, they pulled up and I'm like, "Hey, how was the trip?" And it was everything Dom said. They're like, "Well, let me tell you, like, plane was going to land and then it went back up." And like, I'm like, "Oh boy, I don't know if this is in the cards right now." But we had a great visit. If you know Sophia at all, she is just an authentically awesome person who is just super kind, an incredible teammate, just like loves her teammates, competes hard for her teammates. And obviously, coming from the background of Dom and him being her coach, it's just like on the ice is super detail oriented, really, really competes at a very, very high level off the puck, and has been a great addition to our team. So anyway, that was the process, and we were pretty psyched to get Sophia on board because it was pretty late. I feel like it was at maybe February, March-ish that had to be before nationals, because we knew she was committed by nationals, but it was a really incredible get for us, and we feel really fortunate.
Well, Chris, I want to introduce Jordan Fenton. He coaches the AAA girls team out here. He's a high school principal. Jordan, are you on? He has joined us, but he might be out dealing with issues.
There he is.
Well, the only issues I'm dealing with are my own today, Wally, right now.
Okay. All right. Well, Jordan, I'd just like you to introduce yourself, because Chris, Jordan's coached, helped Dom some of his teams in spring hockey, and he's really familiar with Sophie and Dom's program. He's been with the Sharks just about since its inception. Can you introduce yourself, Jordan? Talk about your role and your role in coaching and what's going on now, and maybe connect it to Dom and Sophie and where she's at. Go ahead.
Well, good morning. Yeah, as Wally alluded, I'm Jordan. I'm currently coaching U18 AAA here in Calgary, one of the two U18 AAA teams, the newest one, as the second one was added this season, to do with the increase in play by female hockey players in our region and in the province. And so been the benefactor of working with U18 AA players for the last 3 seasons prior to this one. And so a lot of the hockey, getting to see these kids playing at that level right up through, and then this year with an expansion team of, well, realistically only 2 kids that have played at this level prior to, so 18 kids that are brand new to the level, which has been a great learning opportunity for them as well as for myself through the whole process. It's been good. In my role away from the rink, I am as Wally said, a high school principal, just starting a brand new high school this year that just opened in September. So it's been an interesting fall for me for sure, with a new hockey program and a new school. And so it's been split loyalties a lot of the time. As far as working with Sophia and Stella and Sarah and Dom's girls, had the opportunity to be around them. Had I guess 3 summers now. I guess we're and getting to see them and their drive and that piece. Getting to see Dom in his way of coaching kids to play freely and giving them some structure, but allowing them to play freely and expecting them to create while they're on the ice, which is good. But to see the drive that Sophia and Stella and Sarah all have, that internal piece of making themselves better too. Has there been a little bit of push by Dad? Probably at times, probably a little more than he wants to sometimes, but I can also see it the other way, that those kids are internally or intrinsically driven, and if they really didn't want to, they wouldn't be doing it. So it's they're great kids to be around, and count myself fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with them. And what we did was bring some basically Calgary and area kids together with some American players to play in some showcases. And beyond the hockey, it was really good learning opportunities for the kids, just in growth and learning about life and how to come together and work with people that you wouldn't necessarily have had the opportunity to, and that piece. So that's always a great offshoot of it as well.
Jordan, thanks very much. Chris, I'm going to ask you the same question to a number of us here. And the question is, why do you coach? And myself, I coach for the good of the game and the development of players' life skills that are going to be learned through hockey. I've asked this question of many coaches in Girls Hockey Calgary, and one of them coached a U15 team, and he said his goal is to get as many kids to the AAA team. And so I'm sort of on the fence here about, I think everybody wants to get to the AAA team. Everybody wants to get the NCAA Div 1, but you can't all accomplish that. And just to be the best you can be in terms of developing life skills, hockey will teach you to be the best you can be if you coach it properly. So that's my background. So Chris, Why do you coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, it's evolved over the years, right? Probably like for all of us. I mean, I got into it just because I love the game and wanted to stay in it. But, you know, if you fast forward to now, you know, for me, I am very competitive, but ultimately it's about the relationships and really being able, for lack of a better term, like I believe in myself in terms of my ability to, you know, connect with our players, to show our players how much we care about them, care for them as humans, not just as players. And through those relationships, especially in our sport, positively impact their self-belief, not just at the rink, but really in everything they do. You know, we have a lot of players here who are very driven, and somewhat almost perfectionist in their approach to things. And so, you know, I personally really value the opportunity to talk with them and get to know them and listen to them and try to be a mentoring support to them, to help them understand that in many ways, like your best is good enough. And there are going to be days where it goes great and there are going to be days where it doesn't. And to your point, Wally, with the life skills piece, it's one, appreciating our process and our drive to be our best, but then accepting those times when maybe it doesn't go our way and just trying to learn from those. And I think that translates to life, you know, and so for me, I think, you know, the competitive part of me, certainly, you know, we have aspirations to win league championships, national championships. We believe we can do that. But we don't think we can get there unless we have a culture here where players understand and know that they are valued for who they are as humans, as more so than they are as players. And we feel like when they know that, then we can really, in a really healthy way, push them to believe in themselves and be their best selves. And then hopefully, you know, maximize our team's potential as a group. But the mentorship part for me, the ability to see a kid evolve from maybe insecure and not believing in themselves to, you know, to seeing that evolution of self-belief, and then to see it translate into like job interviews and internship interviews, and to see their faces when they come back from those and they just really do a great job and they get the job or they get the internship. It's pretty special. And I don't believe for one second that I'm a massive part of that. But I do believe that we are a small, important part of that, in terms of our, you know, day in, day out connection with the players. So a little bit long winded, but that's what drives me in terms of coaching, you know, the players that we coach.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate that. The winning is sort of the distraction up here that can derail the purpose of the game. And we deal it on a constant basis. And when you talked about building confidence and kids believing in themselves, one of the phrases I use, your job as a coach is to transmit belief and help them believe in themselves. Jordan, I wonder if you could just talk about why you coach. You've been at it a while. You might have changed your reasons for coaching. I don't know. When you started, you're coaching now. What's your why?
Well, it has evolved, Wally, I think a little bit. And there are some definite days where I look in the mirror and ask that question to myself, as things maybe aren't going the way you want it to, or you've had an email from a parent or those sorts of things. But because of course the coaching part is volunteer, dealing with the parents and that in my current role or my professional life, well, that is not really as much of a choice. It's a necessary part of it. The why for me, Wally, goes back to when I got started in it. Was I had a coach when I was playing level that he always said to us that if we got anything from the game, that we should give back when we had the time to. So I know the impact that he had on me as a young person at the time, and how invested he was in it. So I got myself involved partially for that reason. The other parts are much like Chris had said, that the competitive nature of it myself, as well as loving the game piece is where it took me into it. But specifically on the female side of the game, I think it came down to running hockey programs in my schools and getting to experience working with the female athletes, and them being so inquisitive of why you're doing things and wanting to know those pieces and really wanting to get better. Whereas the male athletes, they felt a little more like they were going through the motions, that they would do what you asked them to a point, but they didn't really care to know the reasoning behind it. So I got convinced to coach on the female side, and I've been involved with it for a decade since. So, but it's partly, I think it keeps me involved in the game. Partly it's to support players in becoming better humans and better at the game. And yeah, it's a great way of filling time, or some others say sucking time, but it is just a thing that I don't know whether it's a passion or an addiction at times. You're muted, Wally.
Dom, you've run the gamut. You wanted to do one thing growing up, and that's play in the NHL. Am I right?
Thank you for giving
I
me hope.
apologize.
No matter what I face,
the,
you daily remind me that all I need
announcements
you
are
when I
coming
draw
in
near
this
you.
morning
Thank you
here.
for being my source of
We
strength.
got
Thank
some
you for being
background
my
noise
strength
from
in bad days.
somebody.
I'm grateful that
Yeah,
you who are
just
in
if
me
you could
are
go with
greater
someone
than
else,
the
I've got the
ones in the world.
announcements from the
You promise
school.
to always
Okay.
be with
Okay, well, Dom, I know when you were young, you played the highest level at the age group whatever age group you were in. You probably were accelerated if you were when you were U11 to play U13, and maybe you were accelerated as a midget and played U15. But I know you just went the typical Canadian route. You sort of gave up your life for hockey. And my first experience with pros was the conditioning camp I ran in the summers, when conditioning wasn't a part of the player's education. So the 3 weeks we had with the Rice Times in Calgary that you came to, Dom, they were a grunt period that got them ready for NHL camps. Now, can you talk about your journey, Tom, as a player, and then going to Europe, and then working with the Flames, and what? Obviously, you wanted to stay in the pro game, but now look where you are, and look at what you're doing, and how you've come sort of full circle here in terms of the why. Go ahead.
We will celebrate our
It's the longest announcements of all time.
during our annual
So
as always, everyone is expected
Okay, well,
to be reverent and respectful.
I tell you what I'll do, Dom. If you mute, I'm gonna ask Tom to comment. Tom Malloy, are you on, Tom?
Yeah.
Because I know when you taught school, somehow when you're a school teacher, you're dedicated to developing people. You're schooled that way. And we both taught in the Catholic system here and coached in the system here. And so the values that we were raised with became a part of how we coached. And can you talk a bit about why you coach, when you started, and why you're still coaching now?
Oh, probably just because I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed playing. Like when I grew up, there was hockey, baseball, football, because it was all outdoors. And yeah, I enjoy teaching, and I enjoy the game, and I enjoy studying the game and trying to, pass it on. And I enjoy being with the kids, and I'm lucky enough that my son's coaching with me. And, we can talk about things and stuff like that. So that is very satisfying in itself. And yeah, it just kind of suits my personality. Even when I was a little kid, there was no teams until Pee Wee, like 13 under. And you had to make the 12-year-old teams in baseball and hockey. So I remember in elementary school, I was in grade 4, I think, or 3. I organized a team and we played the public school down the block. And it's kind of, and in junior high, I organized a intramural softball because the teachers weren't doing anything. So it's kind of in my blood, I guess. And I just enjoy doing it.
Well, Tom, you were ahead of your time as a phys ed teacher because you were able to put 100 kids in a gymnasium and using your station work in your different activities at each station. You were ahead of your time.
Only 60, Wally.
Yeah. Well, that's too many for a small junior high gym.
Well, it's all about using space, right?
Yeah.
So I always would challenge how to use space that nobody sits down. The last thing you want is junior high kids sitting with nothing to do. If you want to have a bunch of, so I would use a stage for fitness and put extra lines in the gym. And it was really nice when we went outside, but we were inside a lot in Calgary, that's for sure. But even with the hockey, I came up with a new way to organize the ice when the goalie's being warmed up. And I've done that the last couple of weeks we have the ringette line, but the top of the circle, from the top of the circle to the goalie, when she's there, she works with the goalies, and the ringette line to the red line, one group, and red line to ringette line, another group, and the other end ringette line to the goal. And, we warmed up with, I put the lines together. We got 20 skaters. So 3-on-3 in each zone, and we did keep away. And there was a rule to every, we started off that you had to make forehand passes because the bane of our whole thing is blind backhand passes. I give the puck away. And then I rotated, the golds one. And then we played a game where you had to make a scissors. And then about 3 minutes each, then we rotated again and had another rule. But anyways, that's using space and keeping everybody busy. And then I learned so much from Johanni he's a Finnish coach. He was captain of Finland for years. He's in the IHF Hall of Fame. He's in Toronto. His name's on the wall in Toronto there. He was a master at using space. And his ideas got me through these years of my last 13 years. I always had double classes in a small gym, 3 badminton court gym. But I liked teaching junior high. Then I could coach hockey. I was at high school a few years, but you don't make your own schedule up. And I couldn't coach hockey. So I left and went back to junior high. I could make my own thing. But, so anyways, I enjoy that challenge. How am I going to accomplish what I want to accomplish by, using the space properly.
Dom, I don't know if the announcements are over. Are they?
Yeah, thankfully they've
your
yeah.
journey, how
Yeah.
it's changed, and your
Yeah.
hockey today.
Yeah. So I don't want to sit here and bore you guys with the details, but yeah, I mean, growing up in Calgary, I mean, it was Canadian city and wanted to, my dad's actually from Italy and knew nothing about hockey, married my mom, and it was a hockey family, and it was always my uncle had played. And so I never played higher than my age level, to be honest. And my dad was opposed to that. And I think back about it now. For sure at the time you were thinking, hey, I wanted to play up. I think that there's a lot of benefit of that, being able to be confident and able to grow your game in different ways. And so I moved my way up through, went to Lethbridge and played major junior, made the decision on my own to go play major junior. My parents both really wanted me to play college, and I had multiple offers to go. In fact, my dad, when Sophia had committed, had brought out a folder of all the, because they would send something through the mail of all the opportunities, and I looked at it and I'm like, what are you trying to tell me right now? Okay, just of the wasted opportunity of going someplace. But to this day, I really respect that he left it to me to make the decision. Now, was I equipped to make that decision at 16? Absolutely not. And I asked him, like, why did you let me go? And he said, you know what you told me? You told me that I could go for a year, but then I'll fail out and I'll be back anyway. So you just let me go play major junior. And I looked at him and I go, how did you not slap me around and be able to knock some sense into me, right? But I remember after my first year of major junior, I wasn't playing. And I remember he drove from Calgary to Swift Current to watch me play. 4-hour drive through the snow. You can imagine the Canadian winter. And I didn't get a shift. And I remember, but he didn't say a word. And I as a parent now, I can imagine the frustration. I can imagine how upset he was. The major junior coach at the time, and who we've had on our call, Bob Laux, sat in our living room and told him how much I was going to play. Well, he's doing his job. He's trying to get me there. But at that point, I had to recognize I've made this decision, and now I've got, I have to work my way out of it. So it was such a huge lesson to me in reflecting on it, as far as having your kids being able to make decisions, because was I equipped? No, but it pushed me in the summer to do more, to figure out how am I going to play, because I really wanted to play. I really wanted to be successful. So then I became a student of myself at that point to try to figure out what are the things that I have to do to be able to kind of play more in junior, right? Like I was, and so I ended up going from not scoring a goal after Christmas my first year to having 120 points the next year, and then getting drafted. I was drafted by Pittsburgh. And then again, it was, I got to that level, and again, I had to figure it out again. And you talked about the program, Wally, at that point, those guys would come to get themselves in shape for those 2-3 weeks that they skated with you, and the whole summer was a free for all type thing, right? Well, I was a small guy, and I had to figure out ways to be able, and I wasn't really fast, but I had to figure out ways to be able to be successful. And again, so, it was in the minors a little bit there, and again, struggled again, wasn't playing, and had to, make the choice to commit, in different ways off the ice, and then was able to get, got a one-way contract in Edmonton, played a little bit, had some injury problems, had concussions, missed almost a full year, ended up going over to Europe in a lockout, and then spending another 9 years in Switzerland. Again, there's different challenges there. Love Switzerland, from the standpoint of how good the hockey was. But again, there's only 4 imports per team, and you're almost like on a different team, if you will, from the rest of the Swiss guys that have a job because they're Swiss. And, and so then now that, wanted to win. And again, like you're all trying to, make yourself better. You're competitive, super competitive. So wanted to be in a winning situation. So then now you're figuring out and adapting to the dynamic. And had some good successful years there in Switzerland. And then, ended up, having a family over there. All three of my kids were born there. And then getting to the point where, okay, well, I can't do this forever. What am I going to do? I put so much time and effort in making myself better and figuring out how I could last as long as I could and be successful. And then, I was given the opportunity by Bob Hartley to come work for the Flames. He appreciated the time that I put in as a player, as a teammate, as a leader. I had one summer, I had taken about 10 guys from Switzerland. I brought them to Calgary and had ran a training camp with them. So he envisioned, that being a part of my role with the Flames, and actually wanted me to be the strength and conditioning coach, which I told him, I'm like, the education needed in those position is like, you need like masters in like kinesiology. He's like, you'll figure it out. I'm like, no, Bob, it doesn't work that way. Like, it's not, it's just so, but was able to get opportunity, my foot in the door, and was able to get in a development role within the Calgary Flames organization. I was traveling, working with the big team on and off the ice, traveling with the farm team. And then at one point decided, hey, I want to get on the bench. I missed being close to the action. And so there was opportunity to move to Stockton with the American League team, and was able to run a power play and be a part of a skills coach. And, it was really, really eye-opening, as I'm sure it is for most players that finish playing, and understanding what the responsibility and that you have as a coach, and the work that goes into it, was underneath some really, really, some really good coaches, and both very, very unique in their own way. And they're both actually now with the big team. One is a head coach, one is an assistant coach, and had some success professionally. We had, a really good team. The lockout year, or not the lockout, sorry, the COVID year. The year before COVID, we had the top power play in the league, and we were successful, and it was, you get into a routine, you figure out how to teach things. When I first started teaching the power play, I had everybody in lanes, right? Everybody was in lanes, everybody goes here, everybody goes there. And the guys were very, they lit, and at that level, they're, they want to be on the power play. So they'll listen to what you want to do, but they come back to the bench and something had changed, and they're looking at me for an answer. And it's like, it was a realization on my part that, you really needed to give it back to them. Right. And then, so again, reflecting, and it's just this give and take as a coach / remember what you did as a player, and, ended up having a really important conversation with Jeff Ward, who ran the power play in Calgary, who ran it in Boston when they won the cup there. And, kind of gave me the blueprint as to what they did in Boston. And it was very like, it was very, very simple, but it was, there was obviously small details within it, but it was very, very conceptual, and, kind of took that and tried to apply your own twist to it. And so, again, COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people, I think, and coming out of COVID, or with COVID, really appreciated how the timeline of your family and your timeline of how much time you actually have with your kids. And so made a decision to kind of, still want to be involved in the game, because I love the game. Love the lessons that you learn within the game. And so I saw an opportunity to try to build something. And some days are a lot easier than others in California, obviously, and trying to have like a vision of what you want to have. And so, I have 3 girls, and, there's definitely challenges in coaching your own kids, and definitely challenges in trying to, give them the, let them experience being a part of a team. And so, you know, I'm obviously still working on that. That's a struggle. I'm not going to lie. But really enjoy being able to have the school piece and the hockey piece, and have to try to give them the best opportunity to have success once they leave the program. And whether that's in hockey, and whether that's, you know, whatever field that's in, I feel that there's so many good lessons within the game, being a part of a team, having to travel places, having to go through all these different things together. And again, I just want to try to give them guidance and give them opportunity, because if they're, you know, and again, they have to want to be able to do it. We had this conversation before, whether it's a choice or whether it's a sacrifice, you know, want them to understand that they need to choose to do these things. But I just want to, you know, give them the experience, if you will, and reassure them that, you know, that it's going to benefit them if you know, if they go about it the right way, whatever they end up doing. So sorry for the long-winded response here, guys, but
guys, I don't know at what point when you're coaching, I'm trying to tie in how you guys coach and build a team and make everybody feel part of a team, because, you know, let's face it, I don't care if it's girls hockey Calgary or in the NHL, you got your best players and they're getting the ice time. And in Calgary, we have a program called Instat. Are you familiar with that, Chris and Dom?
Yeah, we use that as well.
Yeah. And I'm finding the coaches need to balance the minutes better to build a team. And they create their special teams from the drop of the puck at the beginning of the season. And some of them that double shift the best players on both, well, that obviously affects minutes for others to get an opportunity. And I think, Chris, in terms of what you said, affects their confidence and their self-belief. So I'm curious to everybody on here, what is the balance to get the most out of your team, to get the result you want, without having them lose a belief that they're good enough to be there and feel a part of it? Chris, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, if I'm being completely honest, I think that's a real challenge, and we think about it a lot here. I would just start by saying, and I'll try to be concise with it, because I think there's a lot of nuance to it, that just the day-to-day of things that happen and how you respond to it. But to start, you know, I think our approach here is that there are, like, we have expectations, standard, identity, non-negotiables, right? Like, no matter who you are, you know, you're going to track back on pucks. No matter who you are, you're going to be, you know, you're going to be open to blocking shots, and whatever those standards are that are for everybody, we just really have to be clear about it. And then, you know, through practice, celebrate when it happens. When it doesn't, you know, hold players accountable in various ways. But we're really clear about, this is who we are, and no matter what your skill set, this is the expectation. From there, you know, I think I'm listening to you, Wally, talk about everyone feeling a sense of belonging. You know, we do our best to try to find roles for as many players as we can. And so, you know, right now for us, we have a lot of injuries right now, but when those injuries aren't, or when those players come back, you know, we don't have the same 6 forwards on the power play as on the penalty kill. You know, we try to find kids who will really value this idea of, like, hey, when we take a penalty, this is my responsibility. And they own that, right? They may, you know, be third line players. They may be, you know, players who maybe don't see a lot of offensive zone face-off time, but they own that and they jump over the boards with enthusiasm and excitement. Certainly we have some players who it overlaps for, but I think we're at our best when, we have everybody embracing the role that they take on. I'll just say real quick, within that is the nuance of just a lot of communication and a lot of conversations, because to your point, the players who play a lot, generally speaking, are happy. The players who, get 8 to 10 minutes a night want more. And we as coaches, I think specifically in this generation, we have to approach those conversations from a place of those kids just want to help. They just want to be that much more a part of it. They're not selfish. They just want to help the team. And so our ability to communicate with them on, okay, here's why we did what we did in this moment, and here's what we want to work together on to help you gain more ice time, gain more critical minutes, if you want to call it that. That communication, those conversations are so important. And, then there's a lot of other stuff we could talk about, which is, communicating with our captains about kids who are struggling and making sure that those kids are putting their arm around the players who maybe aren't getting as much ice time, because in the end, and I think everybody here I would think agree with this, like, we're the coaches, right? We're the ones making the decision that frustrates them. So yes, we have to communicate, we have to support, we have to try to develop, but it means a heck of a lot more when, you're a sophomore and you want to play more and the senior captain puts their arm around you and says, hey, you're doing a great job. Just stick with it. You're going to get your opportunity. And so just kind of the nuance of working within the group to make sure our kids feel a sense of belonging. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of how we do it. There's the non-negotiables, and then there's the trying to find roles for everybody, and, the communication part of it when it isn't going as well as, certain players might genuinely want it to go.
Dom, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, any because obviously you all want to. The goal is to be successful at the end, as successful as you can be, and any team that I've been a part of that has had coaches have found a way to be able to use everybody, and to have people in certain roles. And I know, speaking because I remember I dealt with this in Europe more extensively, is that, like I mentioned, there's like 4 imports on a team. And so the difference between the better teams in Switzerland anyways, and then the other ones, is that like the imports pretty much cancel each other out. All the imports were roughly of the same level. And the teams that were, able to have success were the ones that were be able to have, quote unquote, the rest to be able to contribute. And I remember playing on one team where they just played like the imports to, and it was like, we couldn't even 20 minutes on the big sheet is ridiculous. And we were playing, over 20 minutes every game. And I remember playing against, and because in a lot of the imports, there are a lot of North American guys. So there's a lot of Canadian guys that were there, and we would, the imports would talk after games. And so I remember one of the games, we played one of the top teams, and they beat us. I don't know what it was. It was a close game. They ended up winning. And obviously we were, we were upset we lost. And I remember going and talking with some of these guys after the game, and they were like, oh geez, I wish I played as much as you did. And I remember thinking at the time, and thinking, I wouldn't care. I would play 3 minutes less if I was able to win. And so, again, like it was all. So I take that, and with my teams, and I think to myself, I'm like, of course the top, for the most part, the top players, they always want to go out. They're always ready to go over the wall and be able to to be able to play first power play, port and face off, port and this, port and that. But your best players at 85 or 90% are going to be better when they're at 85, 90%, when they're at 70, 75%, because they're taxed, right? And so, the challenge obviously is there's, a lot of times there's a big discrepancy in your ability with on your team, and you're trying to figure out ways to be able to, put better play, get those players together. But to a fault, I think a lot of times I will try to play some of the other players more to try to get their level up, because I had massive blowback from parents. I remember, we've had there's one time we had a power, and it was like a rival, like this, like one of the teams that a lot of the girls have played with growing up, and we had a game against, and it was earlier in the season, and we had a power play, and like I didn't load up the power play, right? I put in, certain players, and like it was basically they just did, down and backs, right? Like every time they came in, they couldn't get entry, they couldn't get set up, they couldn't everything. And after the game, one of the parents like, well, why don't you put the best players together? We needed a goal. Why don't you put the best players together? And my thought was, I'm like, yeah, I guess I could have to win this particular game. And truth be told, I've done it before, right? I've done it before where I stack the best players out, and they go out, they get scored against, they get a goal against, they get a shorthanded goal against them. And now not only are, you lose the game, but then now you've lost the trust and the confidence of the players. They're like, well, I'm not good enough to go out, for the last. And so, I try, and again, it's not always the easiest thing to do, is trying to get everyone in with to get them feeling a part of it. But I try, whether it's trying to, put the strength through the middle of the ice. I mean, you guys have all done it. Put your strength through the middle of the ice with the center, or you put pairs together and you've got one other player again. But yeah, I just definitely, I tried to the best of my ability to get everyone playing as much as they can over the course of the, in all situations. And if we're losing with that, then try to manage it from that, as opposed to trying to load up, the one. But it's obviously different, right? Like it's different at our level than it is at the collegiate level than it is, right? Because there's different pressures, right? And so I'm still trying to figure it out. I guess the long and the short of it is still trying to figure out what the best way it is to go about it. I just think that in my experience of winning, because that's ultimately the goal is of winning, the best way to accomplish that is to try to be able to get, everyone involved, and try to get, them all contributing in a way. But again, nothing earth shattering there, I don't think.
Well, Chris, I just wanted to make the point that girls hockey Calgary, before I get back to minor hockey, I'll go to our national team, women's team. I coached at Salt Lake City in 2002. I would not have taken the job because I told the CEO, Tom Rennie, I won't take the job unless we roll the lines the first half and create roles the second, and we don't duplicate people on both roles. Because we were the best team in the world. And I know that in Nagano we lost to the States. It wasn't about bench management as it was about fitness. The Americans centralized and trained for 18 months. We trained for 4. So Hockey Canada got it right, earlier centralization. Now you got pro leagues. Who knows where the women's going to go? Who knows how many of your players are going to aspire to play pro hockey? Maybe they'll go to Europe. There's great opportunities for them. But in terms of bench management, Tom Malloy went through something last year. He was managing the bench by rolling the lines the first half, and I thought everything was hunky-dory. And he was doing very well, but not good enough. And the parent email at the halfway point was something I could not believe. It was like, what are you doing? telling us how to coach, who should be with who. Why aren't we doing this? And I think Tom got aware of that. He's changed a little bit, getting everybody an opportunity, but at U15, deciding the role by Christmas. And now Jordan's coaching AAA. And I think Jordan's being criticized by some for rolling the lines and giving everybody an opportunity too much. I don't think so. But this is what we're faced in girls hockey Calgary. I watched a U13 game last night. I had a 24-hour rule here because the team that won shortened the bench and got the best players out. And these are 11 and 12-year-old girls. The other team that lost, that outplayed the team that won, it rolled the lines until the last 3 minutes. And we're trying to find out what's the balance in development and winning. And it's sort of like the art of coaching that I'm talking about here. And I sent you an email, I think, Chris, that we had a guest on, Kerry Baracco, a year ago. I coached him as a 14-year-old, and I coached him right up in junior hockey. And he's won 4 national championships at the U18 AAA level. And his bench management, where everybody appreciated their role, he morphed it and did it in such a way that they played beyond their expectations. So to me, there's an art to the whole process. Jordan, can you talk a bit about your philosophy? And then I'll get Tom to talk a little bit about his.
Well, I don't know whether I can call it my philosophy, Wally. It's one that I've stolen from others and it's evolved from my playing days to coaching, in that understanding that piece that you're talking about, and everybody accepting a role and having a role. That any of the teams that I played on that we had success, that having a role part was important, and then accepting it was the second most important piece to it. If you didn't feel like you had a role in the team, you may as well not have been there. You were just filling jerseys, and that piece. So one of the things that, as you said, Wally, Instat does allow you to do is you can go down and quickly look on the ice time report of any team. And the one thing I look at for teams is if players are playing power play time or penalty kill time, are they all getting some of it, one or the other? We've had incidences where, of course, it wasn't one or the other, where injuries or whatever has occurred. But for the most part, that's something that we try and balance out. In the first half of the year, we have players playing both, that they get opportunities to play in all situations. And it is one that's closer to what you call rolling lines, but I call it bench management, because of course you're also getting the opportunity to move players around in those situations. It's just not necessarily next kids up. It's you're looking down your bench and figuring out, well, that's a 2-minute penalty kill. You can get on X number of players on, so you can mix and match players that are around in that piece. Way it's evolving for me though, Wally, is next year I'm going to look at it as being a little bit different in putting together power play units and penalty kill units early on, and changing probably every 5 to 7 games. So the kids will still get the opportunity in those 2 different roles, but that they'll be in it as specific units, not just with their own line combinations necessarily, and getting them an opportunity to look at it differently that way. And part of it is for the focus side of things. So you're focusing only on power play or focusing only on penalty kill for that little bit of time. is part of it. And then the other part is it may combat the optics because, Chris, I'm sure that you have overly involved parents like Dom that you don't want to have around the rink. But it's I'm kidding, of course. But the balancing the parent piece where they will criticize and saying that, oh, you don't have a power play or you don't have a penalty kill. Well, just because all kids are getting the opportunity to play it doesn't mean that you haven't taught them some power play structure or have expectations for them on the penalty kill with how you want them to play. It's that you're teaching the entire team rather than one or two specific units of kids. So that's where things are evolving for me, Wally. But I think that the biggest thing is that with these teams being fully recruited and fully coach picked or coaching staff picked, it's our responsibility to make sure that we develop these players so they can play in one or both of those roles. Like I still think back to a coach that I had that when he was coaching in Detroit and saying that of course your best players should be able to play both. And he was talking about Pavel Datsyuk in the playoffs playing on the penalty kill. And he said, no, we're not going to have Pavel Datsyuk killing penalties in middle of the season when the games don't seem to mean nearly as much. But of course you want the person with your surest hands out there when the game is really on the line in the playoffs and that sort. So things may evolve even more, Wally, as it goes on in certain situational play, but it's much like you talk about. It's probably in a key moment in the last 3 minutes or the last 5 minutes of a game or a period, not the entire game, because it's if you look at it and look at Instat and look at the Oilers versus Panthers last year, Panthers balanced their lineup a heck of a lot more in those 7 games than the Oilers did. And I'm not saying that that's the full reason why they lost, but it could be a contributing factor to why a team that arguably has a deeper lineup of the best players in the world on it couldn't win.
Well, Chris, I just wanted to mention that you've got 2 girls hockey Calgary coaches here, Tom U15, Jordan U18. The goal of those players is to make the AAA team, and the goal of the AAA team, I think, is to make the highest level. And that may be a scholarship. And it might not be NCAA, it might be CIS. It might be level 1, level 2, level 3. But we're at the stage where you get the best kids on an elite team at 11 and 12, and you give them an opportunity, and everybody plays everything. At U13, Tom did that and had some pushback. They wanted him to shorten the bench sooner, manage the bench more to their satisfaction. And Tom learned a lot from that, and he's having a great year this year. But I think he's figuring out how to balance, satisfy the parents, and yet make the players feel valued. Tom, can you talk to that and bench management and what you're doing now?
Well, for us, there was a big change when they're allowed 18 skaters, 20 players. Because with that, you can have 2 power play units and 2 penalty killing units. So what we did 4 months before Christmas, everybody was on the power play for 1 month. And everybody killed penalties for 1 month. And then after Christmas here, we've kind of taken the ones that were the best at the power play. And we have 2 power play units. That does change a little bit, but it doesn't whatever. So everybody on our team has been on power play for 1 month. So they can't say, I played all year and it was never on the power play. So anyways, like I'm just planning my practice for tonight. And what we'll do is one power play go down with Jim and walk through the 5-0 kind of stuff. Well, the other will be with me, and I'm going to do the Bob Johnson power play game, where what happens is they're there, and I send in one player for about 8-10 seconds as hard as they can while the power play tries to score. And I go through everybody, and then I start sending in two players. And, now the power play has to move the puck really quick. And the other end, they're working the power play, and then we switch, and the other ones go against it. But they're specific power plays, and we did that before when we rotated the four. But it seems to work pretty good. You're not, like that thing last year. The parent solution was put your best players on the ice all the time. But they all, they come first day, and the first thing they do to play is they got to hand a check for $4,500. Everybody does. And then within a week there was a $1,500 cash call. So everybody's in it, and they're really in it. We had parents traveling up in blizzard to watch us play in Grand Prairie, and so anyways, we've given everybody a chance to do it. We've taught the stuff to everybody, and everybody is on either power play or penalty kill. So our challenge now is to make sure they can all do each really well.
Chris, I've got a question. A question here, and I'm not sure. Like, I work with the national team, so I thought every elite player wanted to play in the national team. And obviously, if you want to play in the national team, you want to play university hockey at the best level that you can. And so back in my day, most of the players, and probably 95% or 90%, went to NCAA Division I. Now there are players playing CIS hockey here. And many of our players are going to go to Division III. Some are going to go to colleges here, and some are going to make university teams here. The the ones that get to go to the NCAA, they seem to be going to prep schools more often than staying with our program and letting nature take its course. So I'm really curious, at your level, you've got highly motivated girls. And it sounds like they're not only motivated athletically, they're motivated academically. But how many of them want to play at a higher level yet?
Meaning go on and play pro?
Go on and play pro. And with the new NCAA rules, are any of them able to jump ship and go to Division I if they're good enough?
Yeah, a couple of questions in that. I think that it's interesting because I think that when they get here, we're recruiting kids who are very passionate about the game and, to your point, about really everything that they do. And so I think if you were to ask our first years, our sophomores, our older kids too, but they would be all about, if I have an opportunity to play pro and keep playing, that's something that I'd like to do. I do think that over time, with their academics and their studies and their, they start to get more ingrained in whatever they see as a career for themselves, maybe, that dream wanes a little bit. But it's not that their passion for the game doesn't wane. Their love of the game, their love of coming to the rink, being a great teammate, that stays. But they just start to say, hey, I think this is what I want to do with my life. But we've had 2 players over the years go on and play pro, which I think is a fair amount from the Division III level in the NCAA. And so opportunities are there if they want to continue to do that and their ability allows them to. The second question, that's tricky, right? Like, I'm pretty old school. I think that when you when you commit to something and to a group and to a family, and you're really dedicated day in and day out, that it is a 4-year experience. But yeah, with the way that society's adapted and the transfer portal, certainly we have conversations in Division III as coaches when we're on the road, and there's differing views. Like, I take the view of, like, I don't think Nazareth should be a stopover for someone to take a couple of years and then maybe go play Division I, because I think we put our heart into what we do and we're dedicated to it, and I want people who are equally dedicated. But the nature of the game is that, that has happened, and I don't know, it likely will happen more. I just have a hard time, Wally. I just have a hard time believing that you can be all in if you even have, a couple toes out the door and you're kind of dipping your toe into the transfer portal waters. I know that's old school, and I know that, likely over time I'll need to adapt. But and I do understand, like, hey, like, that's their goal. And, I don't know, maybe Division III is becoming a stepping stone. I haven't gotten there yet. And I also believe, honestly, in the women's game, that they value family and connectivity and belonging so much that if we're doing things as well as we want to, they don't want to leave. They want to be a part of it, and they love being around their teammates and family members, and competing for each other. So yeah, I don't know if that's an answer per se, but I do see it more and more, and like, I just don't love it. Like, I mean, I don't know. We put our heart into what we do here, and I shouldn't take it personally, but I kind of do, because we love these kids and we want them to succeed, and we'll do anything to help them.
When I scouted for the national team and we ran under 18 camps, I was the director of player and coach development relative to creating people and to picking people and creating curriculum to develop coaches and players. And parents would come up to me and ask for advice about which school they should go to. So along your lines, my first answer was, well, what do they want to do when they're done hockey? And not many kids think about that. But I'm not sure if you ask that question in an interview, whether they're mature enough to appreciate the fact you're going to work for a living someday. And you may not accomplish your dream. And the message that we try to give elite athletes is, go for your dream, but remember, after the dream is or isn't, you return to the society and the days that we are putting in, working for a living.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and Dom is in this position now, I feel like, with the age group, and I've experienced it coaching prep school and then at Selects Academy, is right. I don't think as a coach you ever want to squash a kid's dream, right? Like, you want kids to strive for their ultimate goals, yet then it's our responsibility to gently kind of make sure we've got backup plans, make sure that we've had conversations about, what can be next if this doesn't happen. But when I started in prep school, I would be like the realistic guy. I was like, hey, I just don't see you as a Division I player. And in the end, it doesn't help, right? Because although we think we're being direct and maybe we're covering ourselves and we're saying, well, I told you this, it really deflates them. And so there is a balance, and there is an art to being able to authentically push kids and support them in their goals, but then also, see the forest from the trees and what might be, and being to help them to prepare for that as well, if and when that time comes.
Well said, Chris. Any comments from anybody? Dom? Jordan? Any thoughts, Jordan, in terms of what everybody said and what you've said, because these are young people playing hockey with high aspirations, and it gets back to the question of why are we coaching them? And I think the why has to align with the how of what we're doing it. So,
Yeah, well, I just think that the biggest thing is to keep that developmental vein in mind at all times. And I know it is very difficult, and I used to fall into the trappings of it too, and I still do at times, to do with concerning myself with the outcome. And I had a great reminder of it on Saturday, where we got our hats handed to us pretty hard, and I don't think it had anything to do with the preparation that went on the week prior. It's just one of those games where we didn't play very well, and we made mistakes that we hadn't made in months, and it did change how we focused on preparation this week a little bit. We had a bounce back game the following day, played considerably better, and took the team that's ranked number 2 in the country, if you believe that my hockey ranking stuff, but took them to a 4-3 game where I think we could have won that one. But it's one of those pieces that making sure that developmental piece is at the core of everything we do. And then the other piece with it is that in thinking about the whole piece of what Tom was talking about with parents and that, I have reminded them at times that what would you feel like if a teacher decided in a classroom that they were only going to focus in on the top students? Even though everybody, if you said that they were placed in that classroom because they were all relatively close in ability. But we're only going to concentrate on providing minutes to those kids that we felt were probably going to be able to go on to the next level right at that moment in time. And you and I had that conversation last night, Wally, that even as close as this past spring and even this past fall when we were finalizing the selection of our team, that there are players that are vastly exceeding expectations from what I had of them, that they've just blossomed over this season. And there are some that maybe aren't quite exactly what we'd expected, but they're still coming along. And there's no players on our roster that I would say have regressed. I think that there might be some parents that may believe that because their point totals aren't the same as they were in a lower level. But the transition, what they're finding is it's a lot different. It's a big jump going from U15 to U18 AAA, or even from U18 AA to U18 AAA. That the biggest learning that they've done this year is the understanding that when you make a mistake at this level, you're usually fishing it out from the back of your net. Whereas in the previous level, they could make some of those mistakes and probably could get by. But in this level, if you make one of those fatal mistakes, and what Kerry Bracco used to talk about with the turnover rule, that usually between 4 to 6 seconds after you turn a puck over, it's going on your goal. So you better fight to get back to where that you can defend that. That's what's happening. So it's the learning that's going on is lots, but it's one of those pieces that, we're trying to develop all 20. Whether we'll be able to get the 5, we're hoping to be able to get the 5 graduating players to a home to continue their playing days. And then the other part is hoping, because of the way that our programs work, where it's open borders in the wild, wild west, that hopefully that the other 15 players do decide to return so that we can continue on our developmental journey.
So Chris, the problem Jordan has is some of his very best players are going to jump ship. He can't prevent it. And last year he had 2 players go to the other AAA team that he coached them in AA. And I thought, loyalty should be pretty important there. When you coach somebody and invest your time and energy, heart and soul to them, I think there's some value in that. And that's an aspect of consciousness, of being conscientious, honest, and trust and respect that you have to achieve anything in any organization, team, or group. So I've got one. I want to ask a technical question here. I want to close with this particular topic. And Chris, when you texted me, you said you were planning practice. Tom already talked a bit about his practice tonight. And you should know, Tom has a site, ABCs of Coaching. Make sure you Google it. It's unreal. Anyway, what are you working on in today's practice and why?
Good question. Before I answer, I do want to point, I think Jordan was mentioning, or the whole group was mentioning bench management and development. And, as a parent of 13-year-olds, the idea of everybody playing and everybody having opportunity, I think is so important, simply from the perspective of there's so much time ahead of them and the confidence piece. But the other point I want to make, and Dom made this in his own journey, like the idea, like the kids need to learn, whether they score 100 points in a year or 4 points in a year. Like, they have to learn to play the game the right way, because even at our level at Division III, it's pretty rare that somebody comes in and just dominates right off the bat. Like, I don't know if parents listen to this but like, if you only know one way to play, if you are only a top 6 skill oriented player and you go to Division I school, you go CIS, you go Division III, there's an adjustment. And if you can't make that adjustment, and there isn't, right, like, you don't have the other fundamental skills on how to defend, or, I don't know, just how to play within structure, it's going to be hard for you to find time. And so the most well-rounded players are the players who can slot up and down the lineup as a first year and play. So I think that idea of, like, the development piece that you're talking about, obviously preaching to the choir, I think that's it's vital for their transition to college. So, and maybe similar to AA to AAA, Jordan, as you're saying, right? Like, the most well-rounded players adjust more quickly. But to Wally's point, today's a pregame for us. We play tomorrow, so we go pretty short, probably 55, 60 minutes. And we want most of it to be upbeat. We want them talking about confidence, to feel good about themselves. So we start every pregame with the same 2 small area games, purple versus gray. And, we do that for about 10 minutes, and there's a winner and a loser, and we like that. The kids get into it. They're competitive. And then from there, we'll get into just some good skill-oriented stuff, touch pucks, some habits still in there, a lot of passing, but a lot of, like, net drive, stop on the crease. Let's play downhill. Let's finish plays. We'll do, maybe, I've learned at our level, it's hard to do more than 2 structural things in a pregame, but like today, we're going to do, some different exit work with some neutral zone forecheck, just so that we're all on the same page with that. But beyond that, we start with games, we finish with small area games. We want the energy to be up and them feeling really good heading into the weekend of competition. So, so that's our overarching goal, while still sneaking in a little bit of kind of structural play, so that we're on the same page as we jump into the weekend.
Yeah, in our practices, of course, unfortunately, we have a 90-minute prep. We only get 2 practices a week, and we play a late game tomorrow. We got to travel to Red Deer, and we don't start till 8. So I don't want to have a really hard practice tonight, but it's 90 minutes. So we're going to do a lot of things where there's a lot of rest in between, and a lot of game situations. But, but we always do individual skills, because the whole point is they come out a better hockey player than they came here. And we'll do the Russian big move, and then I invented this zigzag that I think is the best thing there is. Then we'll do a 2-on-0, 3-on-0, back this Carolina drill, and then some 1-on-1s, and then that power play I talked about thing, and then we'll do a Frizzell battling game that's at one end, and then that 2-net game, 4-on-2 on each side.
Mhm.
You pass one side to the other.
Yep.
And then finish off with a shootout race. There's already 2 nets on the goal line, so just have a relay race kind of a thing.
It's awesome. I think where I hear similarities really are just in the intentionality of what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. And so, like, how we get there looks different, and it should. But even today, right? Like today we'll play some small area games, but some of the rules we'll put in, like we want to start to use the back of the net a bit more in the offensive zone, switch sides with the puck. We'll throw rules in like that. Even the small area games we start with, right? We're working just on fundamentals of, facing the puck, communication, being shot ready all the time. And I don't know, like, I think I have to be better as a coach to occasionally just let them play 3-on-3 with no rules. But I just feel like within every kind of small area game we do, or any sort of drill that we do, especially on the women's side, it was said before, like they want to know why, they want to know how it transfers over to making them a better player, us a better team. And so we really work hard to try to explain that to them, while still, and again, trying to wrap everything up here, like Dom's point, like we talk all the time, it's in every game plan before the game, is we want the players to play free. And for us, that just means, like, to what we were talking about, free of the noise, free of the fear of failure, free of, disappointing, like, just play free, be confident. We're going to make mistakes. It's absolutely fine. It's how we respond to them. But again, we're working with humans. So words on a paper, transferring that to actual, life and execution, that's the challenge, right? That's the bridge you're trying to cross with every player to get them to that point. They're all different. And so you got to attack each of those conversations differently.
Well, I agree. And I got really satisfaction our last game. We ended up in overtime, and we played some games and some keep away in that where they had to make scissors. But we end up in the overtime. We get it in their end, and we made 3 scissors. We kept it in their end for like almost 2 minutes straight, and finally we scored a goal. But we never used to do scissors at all until we implemented that they had to do a scissors before they could score in a game of 2 pass. So it does transfer. It's nice to see, for sure.
Chris, do you play 3-on-3 overtime there?
Yeah, we do. And, I think, again, we all live and learn. I think over the years, we started that probably 4 years ago, and I think I probably overtaught it. And again, I think within our sport, at least with our team, the kids that we recruit here, sometimes too much is too much because they overthink. And so this year we really, we keep it simple. We talk a lot about, we want to know that defending wise, we're player on player in the D zone, and we talk about that, but we keep it simple after that. Like, we don't want to catch pucks standing still. We want a lot of scissor plays, even in the neutral zone, people winding up behind, so they're catching pucks with speed. And then, to Tom's point, offensive zone, we want to make the team make decisions. So a lot of scissor plays there. But man, I had a whole bulleted list of offensive zone, D zone, neutral zone. And I think we lost 6 in a row because they were overthinking in overtime. But it's that fine balance of wanting to teach, but also letting them just play and create within some sort of guidelines, but not rigid structure. So yeah, we do play it, and tends to be some Wild West, up and down, a lot of turnovers and so on. So pretty fun though.
Well, Chris, I want to share with you, Daryl Belfry has been a guest on here. I'm sure you're familiar with Daryl, and he talks about the importance of possession. And he would rather we never dumped it in, that we changed on the fly with possession more often than not. And I'm finding that for possession, you got to be able to pass. And at our level, the U13 and 15 levels, passing is a work in progress. They play 1-on-5 hockey growing up, coast to coast. They don't scan and get their eyes up, and so they don't know how to use each other. So what Tom's accomplished with the way he runs practices, they make more passes than anybody, and they're doing more tactical, sophisticated tactical things at U15 to be scissoring. And every coach is different, but what I advocate at practice on 3-on-3, and you can afford the time, Chris, is you let them play given what you want each other, but they can only change on the fly. And that at U13 and I don't know if anybody's done it at U13 and 15. And I'm not doing it for the 3-on-3 as much as I am possession, awareness, eyes up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think we've ever implemented that specific rule.
Yeah.
But the nature of when we practice it, it does tend to be, changes on the fly. There's not a lot of whistles, generally speaking. But to your point, and we haven't done it in a couple of years, but when Pete and I were together, I don't think we did a lot of 5-on-5. I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't believe in it. But we do a lot more 5-on-5 within practice now. And we would, the first 15 to 20 seconds, whoever won the face-off, it was just keep away. So the goal was not to go down and score. Like if you could figure out a way to do that, God bless you. But it was about, making sure we're available for pucks. We're working back to pucks. We're handling pucks. And then after 15 seconds, I'd blow the whistle. We'd play live. And I think it really helped us relative to not only 5-on-5, but when we would play 3-on-3, players not only were more comfortable possessing pucks, but having an understanding of how to be available away from the puck, right? Not just leaving the puck carrier on an island to, as you said, Wally, like play 1-on-3 or 1-on-5 and just try to beat players to create an opportunity. So I couldn't agree with you more. And I think especially at the youth levels where it's not about winning, it's about development. I think it's that much more important.
Well, listen, guys, we've gone a little while here, and I've got something being delivered to my house and moved in, and I'm going to help with the move. And I really want to thank you for coming on today, Chris, and Dom for joining us, and Peter for setting it up. Peter, I wonder, are you still on? I completely forgot about you because I don't see your picture. I see the 3 people that aren't on the screen. Peter, have you anything you'd like to share related to this session?
You're muted, Pete.
Thank you, Chris. It's very different. I mean, I've coached some with girls in high school and that, but not to the degree that, this is on here. And it's just interesting to me looking back when I did coach high school with the girls was in I want to say it was probably the late 90s, how dissimilar that was from boys hockey at that time, and how over the years now, how similar they are. With everything, I think, from coaching. I mean, I think girls, they want to be coached. If you're a good athlete, hoping to be an elite athlete, I think you want your coach to be somewhat hard on you. I mean, I think they want you to be understanding for sure, because I think there's that element which I think makes us better coaches and better humans as well, when we can be creative emotionally with people. But I enjoy that piece of it. And I think it's great that we were able to get Chris, because I'm surprised he's not wearing his Bills jersey.
I don't want to jinx it, Pete. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
My nerves are up already for Sunday.
Well, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on, and you have a good weekend, and hopefully we can meet again. And we're on every Thursday at 8:30, Chris. So anytime you join, it doesn't matter who's on. I'll ask the questions, and we just love the brilliant thoughts that come out from every member. You know, being a shark means you've done a lot of things over a lifetime, and you continue to learn and you keep on learning. And I certainly learned a lot today. So hopefully when I cut and edit bits and pieces of it and share it with, I have 600 people on a email list, and I ask them to pay it forward to people they think might benefit from it. We're serving the good of the game and making the game better. So thanks everybody for your time. And
Thanks,
Chris,
Wally.
have a great practice. And
Thanks.
Tom, Dom, you too out there. And I might stay on and BS with Tom Malloy for a while here. So
Take
Yeah.
care. Guys. Have a good weekend. Good luck to you all.
okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Great
good
to see
meeting
you
ya.
guys. Great to meet you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Good seeing you.
Hey, Dom.
So you
Hey.
playing this weekend, Dom?
Yeah, we play like we have a showcase. We host this weekend. And so we have a team from Arizona, a team from Seattle, a team from San Jose that are coming to play. So yeah, it's